Welcome to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. This podcast is all about conversations about healing and rising from the ashes of your grief and trauma. In this podcast, we will be deconstructing and highlighting the different aspects of grief and loss. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Zampatella. Hi, and welcome to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. My name is Dr. Christina Zampatella. I am your host for all these episodes. I'm here with John, who works with the Center for Grief and Trauma Therapy, which is one of my group practices, who does several different healing modalities, one of which being sound therapy. And we just got doing an episode on yoga, so look for that one, either whether it's come out or it's going to come out. But we're going to focus our episode today on sound therapy. Which a lot of people don't know what it is, and surely how the heck does that relate to healing from grief and from trauma? So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Very excited to talk about this stuff today.
I am super excited, and I cannot wait to talk about my own experience for the, as well, just to kind of bring it alive. But tell us a bit about you, and then like how all this sound therapy stuff. Where did you get?
So yeah, it's been a long journey, a lifelong love of music, I guess is the first part of it. Okay, and then also a love of science, and there's kind of a nice little meeting point here. It's kind of like earth science and what's going on with the earth and the vibrations, and then what's going on with people's health, and then what's going on with sound science itself. You know, like having a background in, I went to Berklee College of Music, so you really turn over every stone there is with the music, whether it's theory or sound engineering. You have quite a experience at that school, when it comes to sound, and that was mostly geared towards, music production and writing songs and composition, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But then I was in a bit of a challenging accident for myself, where I was in a construction accident, and I got hit in the head with a concrete truck chute, and I found myself to be pretty messed up. All right,
I didn't know that's what you got hit with.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Sounds awful.
No, it was like it wasn't like someone just picked it off the ground. They had to have like a machine come pick this thing up that hit me. It was probably about 1,500 pounds.
Oh my God. You're lucky to be alive.
No, clearly.
Wow.
So I did take it's like anybody, you go through a challenging situation, and mine was in the form of concussion and traumatic brain injury. But where I found relief and healing and in an expedient fashion was with these tuning forks and using sound therapy. Okay, whereas a lot of other modalities were just kind of falling flat, And we did talk about yoga too. I mean, that was an important part of my process, and that's why I kind of am heavily involved in both right now, currently in my life. But the sound is really a profound, interesting way of approaching, any kind of ailment, but mostly wellness. You know what I mean? Just kind of creating a better situation for healing. Okay. So
can I start at the top?
Go ahead.
What is sound therapy? Like, why sound therapy? It sounds woo-woo to a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what? I can listen to a song on the radio, and yeah, it can pull up emotions for me, and the words will pull up emotion for me, but so will the music itself. That's why we can listen to symphonies, and there's no words there, but it brings up so much emotion for you and everything. Yeah, that makes sense to me. But when we start talking about tuning forks and rattles and all these other things, like now I feel like we've gone way out on the fringes, right? To some people might be, feeling that way. So let's start from the beginning. What is sound therapy, and how exactly does that work?
Well, let's take a look at a couple of things that people are familiar with. Probably something like ultrasound. Okay, so, if you're pregnant and you want a picture of the image of the child inside of you, they use what? An ultrasound.
Which is sound. I don't think people think that. I think they think it's image.
Ultrasound. Yeah.
It's like the best sound.
Exactly.
Ultra.
Totally. And then, and then there's like frequency machines. You can go on Amazon and find like a frequency mat to stand on that is going to vibrate at a certain level, or a pair of, there's just a lot of mechanized objects.
How about like sound machines? And you'll see, or even on our apps on our phone, where it'll be like, oh, you can do this brown noise,
Yes.
white noise, green noise, and they're all different hertz, right?
Well, yeah, they're different.
Or different, not hertz, is it not it? The different frequencies.
They're basically kind of like different waves in a
Waves.
sense. You know what I mean?
All right.
What they're trying to, what's going on, say like pink noise to white noise to et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera.
There we
You know
go.
what I mean?
Okay. So then, in other words, like we've got these mainstream, use of sound
Yes.
that people are like, oh, look, pink noise, and they do that, but they don't really think necessarily, well, wait a minute, that's a wave, and why is this working? Binaural beats.
Yep.
Like having sound that goes back and forth between both hemispheres of your brain.
Yep.
Like, and people are like, yes, I was listening to this yoga, but do you know why it's working?
Right.
And I don't know that people can say they know why it's working, or
Right.
how does that resonate with our physiological self,
Right.
and then spiritual self as a result. So,
Well, yeah.
I love that you're bringing up real life examples. It makes a lot
Well,
more sense.
it's a lot of times, it is a real life thing. And what say the binaural beats, okay, you listen to like those sounds. It's, we're already, you start looking at like how does the body digest sound and break it down itself. And then you say, what is sound? Like, you'll see a lot of things. Okay, this is the frequency of the heart. Okay, so, and then okay, so 528 hertz is the love frequency, and I'm being like, so that's what it's being advertised on in Facebook and stuff like that.
Is it though?
No, well, there's
No.
there's a multitude of frequencies in here. So
Okay.
there's 7 of the overtone series, okay, and then there's probably up to 55 sounds that we could track on like a little spectrograph or something. So one sound is a multitude of sounds, okay?
Okay.
Now, if we really get kind of like, okay, this is like this and this is like that, well, the overtone series is a series of 7 notes, okay?
When you say overtone.
So if I hit this, there's like an octave in it.
Okay.
There's a perfect fifth above that octave. There's another octave in relation. There's a major third. There's a perfect fifth. And there's a major seventh. And then that's like the
And
most
all the
dominant.
notes,
That,
like the-
those are
the
all
notes.
inside of this.
Okay.
In anything, whether you're playing your shoe or a cello, it's just all sound has a wave.
Okay.
And, there's loudness is a different thing. Okay, so
Okay.
amplitude, all those are a little bit different, but the harmonic series is present in everything.
Okay.
My voice, or your voice, okay,
Okay.
the sound of the truck going by, everything. And that, there's a magic number 7 in there too.
What do you mean?
There's a bit of there's 7 chakras. So you
Okay.
kind of start saying, oh, my body's listening to this in 7 different ways.
Mm.
Like, even though I can only perceive that as one sound, okay,
Mm-hmm.
my body's perceiving it as multiple.
So your body can perceive sound differently than how you're actually like processing cognitively
Yes.
what you are hearing.
Yes.
So sometimes, and there was somebody I know who explained that that there are certain frequencies that are below our ability to cognitively process, but your body will process it,
Yeah.
even though it's without your conscious awareness. Kind of like dogs can hear high frequencies that we can't hear.
Right. Just
Right.
'cause we can't hear it doesn't
just
mean
because
it
it
doesn't
doesn't
exist.
Right.
Right.
So it's how it's being
Yeah.
perceived is out. But I wonder what that means about sounds that are outside of our awareness that impact us on an everyday basis. Okay,
It's a good
sorry.
conversation.
I got sidetracked on that
think
one.
about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, like, even if you get into, the relationships of, like, the scales and the distance of the planets from the sun, like, there's a lot of commonalities
There is
going
a
on
lot.
with, like, it's vibration. So, like, this whole, in the Sufi tradition, like, there's a saying that before you're a soul, you're a sound, which is very true. It's like you're a vibration before you're even anything. Okay. And so it resonates with our it resonates with our spiritual side because that's where we come from. And then on a healing place and as a facilitator of sound therapy, we have certain tools that we can use for sound. Now, so I don't like to use a lot of like chaotic sounds, although that is still something that you could, somebody's home place could be a heavy metal concert where they just feel like, okay, I've just been shaken. And some people would be like, I can't take that. You know what I mean? So everyone's different. Like, it's kind of like your playlist. Like, what's on your playlist? What is it? And, or do you even have a playlist?
So what is sound therapy? How is that like different than listening to sounds?
Sound therapy to me, okay, like I said, there's a lot of different things you can get on Amazon and buy all sorts of different things. But one, there's not a lot of instruction on how to use them. But two, when there's a human being on the end of it, it's different. Okay, so like me playing the guitar to you here would be different than you having a recording of me playing the guitar.
Right.
It would be much more intimate, it would be much more felt. Okay, my voice live with you. So there's just like, even there's a Native American saying that says, the best medicine is the human voice. You know what I mean? Because of all these cool frequencies that we can produce and its uniqueness and its ability to comfort. And that's kind of like where we're coming in with sound. This is sound healing, sound therapy. That ability to comfort without overly putting it between the ears. You know what I mean?
So ability to comfort is the point of sound therapy?
I would say the point of sound therapy is to basically approach the body from a listener's perspective.
In order to accomplish what?
In order to accomplish like kind of transformation and healing. Okay.
Okay.
So now there's more to what you can't see, you can hear, I guess, and that's where sound therapy comes in to play. So we have basically, we're electric body, okay? Just like the earth has got the iron core, iron and nickel, and then that core creates the gravitational field. That core creates like the lithosphere, and et cetera, all the different like little layers, micro layers of science that are out there. And then eventually to like the unified field, and then you look at the stars. What's holding the stars together? There's the ether and there's a fabric to everything that we're working with, and sound is involved in that. Bringing it back down to like the center, though, our self, we're radiating our electric field out around us. So, I can hear your field with tuning forks. That's why you
can hear my field with because we know that
so
all people
good.
are energy.
I'm glad you
we know
stopped me there.
because that is like everything's energy. I think everybody understands that everything is energy.
Right.
So in that, sound is able to interact with that energy. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes.
Okay, and then I don't have no idea what you were just talking about, like that very last part.
Right, me neither.
Then,
No.
then I got lost. Okay.
Well, it's easy to get lost with it, but it's, because the more you try to figure it out, the harder it is. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it just comes back to listening. So, I mean, I could listen to the sound of you, but which knee is going to be replaced?
This one.
This one. Okay, let's listen to the sound of that knee.
Yeah,
okay?
well, it's sad.
It sounds like it's crying out for help a little bit to me.
It's pretty sad.
So the idea with sound therapy is to take that sound of crying out for help and turning it into like a more coherent sound, maybe of like everything's going to be okay.
How do you turn something into a coherent sound?
Well, one, you have to meet it. It's just like the way waves work. So, if you can't see that, but you obviously could hear the energy that was coming off of your body. So that's where it comes into the practitioner to kind of realize what you need to do. Like, you don't want to, I always call it like the doctor coming in with the chainsaw to perform surgery. Like, you don't want that. You really have to have a relationship with sound. Like, how do I negotiate with this knee here? What am I going to do? First, I'm going to listen to it. First, I'm going to find its different layers of pain. How far does that pain radiate off the body?
How do you know what pain sounds like?
That's what pain sounds like. So like
the one you just did?
Yeah, like that. It sounds like it sounds like pain. It sounds like a fire engine going down the street or something. It sounds like alarm.
Would that sound like if you did that with my elbow, would it still make that sound? Because my elbow's fine, by the way, in case you're wondering. But would it be a different? I'm just trying to get a sense as to.
Well, everything's got its own resonant like strategy, and that's like another. We have different chambers of our body that resonate more, like say the chest, the head. Okay.
Resonate more, like you can feel that sound more.
They're just like bigger resonators. Okay. So like if you had it's like a reverb tank or something like that, where something's creating an echo.
Then they say, oh, you're using your head voice or you're using your chest voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like bringing all that into the picture, and this is why it's you can kind of get woo-woo with this and just kind of make up a story for what you're coming into, or you could understand sound science and be like, well, I'm just meeting this wave. I'm meeting another wave. It's a wave meeting a wave. So say like if you ever go to the beach and you know where the houses and the boats are, you're not supposed to drive your boat really fast. Right? So you're supposed to, it's like the no wake zone, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of how you want to approach things. You want to like a little wave, and that wave's going to bounce off of something, then it's going to come back. You know what I mean? So that's just the nature of the wave. It's like the stone in the pond, in the ripple. Okay, it's a wave. That's what we're dealing with, is that wave, and that wave is undetermined. It's basically like instructions. What do you do from there? And everything has a different sound. Depression has a sound.
What kind of sound?
It sounds like depression, really. It's like
low. Okay.
Disassociation has a sound. It's kind of like addiction sounds just like addiction. It's like drop. It's like a drop spot.
Just a drop spot.
I could like go through someone's like energy field around them and find the time when they were addicted to something.
Wow, that's really getting subtle.
Yeah, so there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information there, and it takes a little bit of training, but it's also like you want to bring your own listening sense into it.
There's a lot of intuition on the part of the practitioner, along with the science.
That's where it gets dangerous. That's where it gets dangerous. Yeah, I guess that's what I try to teach, and like my modality of this is safety of really not putting your ego or your intuition really on top of it. Granted, you are working on somebody, but you want to stay somewhat scientific with it. You want to stay in that realm of like, okay, this is a standing wave. Okay, do you know what a standing wave is? So standing waves are created by the different shapes of the room, or the, where things are located, okay, in the room itself. So this room has got standing waves in it. So I want to know the difference between the standing waves of this room that the acoustics create and what's actually coming off of your body.
Kind of like a dolphin uses for echolocation.
Exactly. This is a lot like being sonar dolphin, so. This
is really all over the place. People just don't know that it's all over the place. And it sounds like being able to then go, okay, wait a minute, how does that translate into, all right, so yeah, my knee is hurt, I'm having a knee replacement, you can see that the pain is there, well, what the heck are you going to do about it with sound?
So
that kind of thing.
Let's go back to how, like the sound
because I'd like to not have the surgery in 3 weeks, so like if we could just hurry it up, it would be
that's something to be careful with too. But let's go into like little case studies. Okay, say like what does sound good for? You know what I mean, and why is it happening? Well, first we can get into sound basically improves or changes the shape of something. So you take a certain frequency, and if you ever look at like one of those somatic videos on YouTube or something, it's spelled CYMATICS, okay, not like somatic, like what we're talking about before. But somatics is when a certain frequency is going to create a geometric pattern. All right, so now we're kind of like into like the biogeometry of all this stuff. Like, so when I play a frequency, just for example, of 220 hertz, I get a shape of something that looks like a flower. Let's just say that, okay? Well, that's interesting, but our cells are doing that same thing. So our cells are being informed by the frequency. So, and there's no magic frequency, it's just a coherent frequency, meaning it's not crazy. It's not like going to a sound bath and hitting every sound bowl and gong that you can find to kind of get people elevated. It's very like direct sound. Okay, what I do and this is, we're leading into how does this help grief and trauma, but how does this help just overall wellness? Is that's the case. If I said, okay, we're going to have a little sound thing, and then first I'm going to take your blood, okay, and we're going to take a look at under a microscope, and we're going to take a look at what's going on with that blood, and the blood and the cells would be kind of like sticky, okay, and then we're going to take another test after it, and the blood is going to be moving really nicely, and it's going to have like a lot of buoyancy and movement, okay, so things are flowing better already, and that's because there's a magical thing that happens with sound, okay, especially with a coherent sound, that it produces NO, okay, nitric oxide really quickly.
Nitrous oxide.
Not nitrous, not like the, not
Okay.
like the nitrous.
Not the where I'm going to go to sleep.
Yeah.
All right, what is it called?
Nitric.
Nitric oxide.
Yeah.
Sound
NO.
creates nitric oxide?
Our body creates it,
Okay.
okay?
In
And it's
response
spiked.
to sound?
It's spiked.
It's
from
spiked.
from sound.
From
so you can
sound.
use
Oh.
foods, you can if you eat a beet or something like that, that spikes it a little bit too. But there's no food or supplement that spikes it more. I mean, to be perfectly, what's the active ingredient of like Viagra is NO, okay?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it improves like circulation, et cetera, et cetera. So this is spiking our natural NO in our body, okay? Because that's like a knee-jerk reaction to the sound.
So instead of taking Viagra to have sex with my wife, I need to bring in a tuning fork.
No, I don't even want to go down that
But why? I mean,
rabbit
hey,
hole.
it sounds like fun. Let's go.
Granted,
Let's see what does happen.
that sounds like a lot of fun. But
You got to keep that in.
I guess what I'm trying to say is NO is like a natural pain reliever too.
Oh.
Okay, so instead of taking aspirin, instead of taking pain meds, like
Yeah.
this gives you a feeling of, oh, everything's okay. I'm not in pain. Okay?
So is that something that you try to increase when you're working with somebody in sound therapy?
It's just happening. It just
happening, happens naturally.
Yeah, it happens from the sound.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we're equipped with that. Every time we take a breath in through our nose, we get a little shot of NO too. Not NO2, but NO
Gotcha.
also.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's why in yoga or in any kind of breathing exercises, we're trying to calm the system down and soothe it through nose breathing, because we're getting that little shot of NO. Versus the mouth, we don't get it.
Oh.
Okay.
Why?
And then we get like the fight or flight system kind of we're hopped up by mouth breathing.
Why? Why is there a difference?
It's like the sympathetic and parasympathetic
Yeah,
system.
I knew that, but I mean, like, why is it? Okay, anyway, I'm getting off subject.
No, why? Because you get, for me, the why of that answer is because you're getting a shot. You're getting like a little shot of NO, which is like,
Yeah.
it relaxes the system, and then it also improves the health of the system too. Okay. So everything's flowing better. That's a main component, all right? And
Okay.
whether you're, yesterday, I'm not saying this is for COVID, but the person I was working on yesterday had COVID. It was a distance session, and
I was like,
yeah, I know. She was in Hawaii.
okay, keep her in Hawaii.
Right. But the point is, you just kind of spike everything to get the circulation going,
Okay.
to get the person feeling better, to open up the capillaries, to change the structure of the cell. So essentially, in layman's terms, the cells that can't handle this restructuring, okay, this new like response, basically kind of die off. All right.
Oh.
So then you get like a detox somewhat response. Okay. So
Oh.
that's when you're feeling, there's like this after a sound healing session, you go through like a 48-hour period of just like renewal and auto tuning. Really is what's happening. You're continuing to tune yourself. Okay.
Can I share my experience?
Yes,
This is a
I'd
good
love
place
you to.
share. Okay, so when I first met you and you talked about, I do yoga and I do sound therapy, like I'm on board. Like I'm super curious and I'm excited about alternative, right? But I'd never done sound therapy. Now I'd worked with shamans. I've had all kinds of experiences, and obviously in meditation, I have a singing bowl and the whole 9 yards.
Right.
So very open to it. So I was going through, and I will never forget this. It was a really, really difficult time. And you looked at me and you're like, you need to come down for a session. And I'm like, yep. Still having no idea what it was. And I remember very clearly, like, first of all, I had no idea it was tuning forks and the way that you were going around and my body and different tuning forks at different parts of my body. And there's no touching. I mean, sometimes you'll use the bottom of it, like at the bottom of your foot. Yeah. But ultimately, that's not really what's going on. But I could feel, oh God, this is hard to put into words.
I know.
It's hard. I could feel this like I had my eyes closed and I could tell where you were, but not really. Like it was surrounding. It was a very much surrounding feeling. And I could feel my body going, whoa, like with it. I could feel it trying to not, what's the word I'm looking for? Not mesh, but I could feel it trying to meet it.
Yeah, it's trying to put itself into
trying
phase.
To put it into, yeah, that's what it
so
felt.
you're like, instead of, if you're out of phase,
and I could feel that. And I'm going, am I making this up in my head? I'm like, no, I can feel this in my body. I can really feel it. So in that session, I remember coming back upstairs after and just being like, I can't believe just from that, after coming out of, and you looked at me and you're like, what is going on? Like you're all over the place. And it was a very traumatic event that had happened. And I just felt grounded and centered and quiet. That's probably an important word for me because I'm not very quiet all the time, but quiet and cohesive. It's probably the best word I can come up with. But I just remember feeling like it went from being everywhere to here. Like, and when I say everywhere to here, for people who are listening, I mean everywhere out there to a very solid, centered here. And then you had me come back the following week, and it was a little bit different in a good way. And this time you started going, hey, wait a minute, what happened when you were 7 years of age? And I was able to reflect on something. And then I was thinking in my mind, like, and you kind of went through a few ages, and then in my mind, I hit 29 in my mind, and I was going through something. You're like, and then just after, what happened when you were 29? I'm like, all right, now you're freaking me the fuck out. Like, that is crazy. And that happened way more than one time. Yeah. And then the third, and again, but I still came out feeling very grounded, but it's still a different feeling. Like each time had a different feeling, but ultimately felt like rooted. That's the best word I can come up with. It's like when your root chakra is like really strong and it's down into the ground and you're feeling, that's how I felt. I felt very rooted, and open. My throat and my chest area just felt a lot more open, and I wasn't afraid. Right. And trauma and it's fear, like personified, you know what I mean? And then the third time it was another time, but it didn't feel, I didn't have the need as much as I did the first and second times. There was just something different that happened. And I mean, I watch, like, I think it's time for me to do another one, like of getting that place where it's like, I got some things that are going on that are happening, and I don't even hesitate. I'm just like, what's John's schedule looking like today? But my clients too, like they're coming up and they're going, because I'll say to them, just try it. Right. Because even now I'm having a hard time explaining it. Right. It's just tricky. Try it, because your experience of it is going to be different than my experience of it. Right. And this time might be different than the next time that you do it.
Thank you for listening to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it, subscribe, and leave a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. We want to be a resource for anyone who is experiencing loss, and this is a simple way you can help us spread the word. Check out our show description. There you'll find a link to connect with me on social media, as well as helpful articles and resources.